What made me start to waver was the day I met Edward. The man who used to be full of spirit was no longer the same. He looked disheveled. Early in the morning, the bar closed, and the staff threw out the drunken Edward. He fell to the ground, mumbling something. Ding! Wisnovel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. Retribution. This was his retribution for bullying me. That was my initial thought, but I didn't feel any comfort from it. There was no fluctuation in my heart. During the 2 years of capturing Edward, I never had a hint of affection for him. Remembering that he was, after all, the last person in the world with blood ties to Sean, I walked over. Edward? I squatted in front of him and poked his shoulder. Edward, can you get up? Don't sleep on the street. How embarrassing. This lump of mud finally reacted. Rita? I nodded. Get up quickly. What are you doing lying here? He stood up unsteadily. Without saying much, I was about to leave. Rita, I just can't figure it out. His voice was dry, but there was a calm resignation in it. Why did you suddenly stop liking me? I really wanted to tell him that I never liked him, but if I were to be honest, then the 2 years of my relentless pursuit of him would make no sense. The man in front of me, looking like a beaten dog, was so different from the one 6 months ago. After thinking for a moment, I could only give a vague answer. No girl will keep liking someone who treats her badly all the time. Suddenly, I remembered something and asked him, have you investigated whether Shane's mother deliberately ruined your family? Have you found out? The man pursed his lips, his face immediately turning ugly. I understood. It seems you already know. Edward, you owe Sean an apology. You know you misunderstood him, but you don't have the courage to take responsibility and apologize. What's there to like about someone like you? Edward's anger suddenly flared up. This is my own business. I couldn't be bothered. The family business empire left by his father was declining rapidly. Edward was on a path of self-destruction, leaving him to stomp and fume on his own. I quickly walked away. I was already annoyed Edward. After returning, Sean's first sentence directly hit me. You went to see Edward? I looked at him and blurted out, are you monitoring me? The atmosphere instantly became heavy. Sean slowly raised his head and locked eyes with me. After a while, he chuckled lightly and spread his hands. You see, you also think I'm a pervert. Then why do you still stay here? Casually throwing away the book in his hand, Sean stood up and walked towards the study. His expression showed no trace of anger, but he didn't look at me again. The spacious living room was left with only me. Even the system seemed a bit unfair to Sean. He goes to the company the same way. He really just passed by. Sean, seeing you standing with someone you used to pursue, he didn't come over to disturb you, really took a lot of willpower. It grumbled. You come up with the assumption that he's monitoring. You're really rude. I unconsciously picked at my fingers. The feeling of regret almost overwhelmed me. I immediately walked towards the direction of the study. I knocked on the door. No one answered me. I pushed the door open tentatively. The man standing by the window did not react. Only then did I relax and went in. Sorry, Shane, I was wrong. I stood behind him, holding his waist. I sincerely apologized to him, telling him I really liked him. Finally, I recounted all the conversations with Edward today to him. Sean had no reaction, just dropped 2 words, come here. After speaking, he walked out. I followed him into a room full of indescribable toys. What does this mean? Is he going to punish me? I suppressed the collapse in my heart and waited for him to speak. Do you know what these are used for? Used by a pervert. I didn't answer, just dryly smiled. Sean Seaborn also smiled slightly, apparently understanding my meaning. He looked at the things on the wall and casually spoke. These were used by Edward's father, and added slowly, used on me. I froze immediately, trying hard to understand the meaning of his words. I looked up again at those things. Ignoring the filth in my head, I looked at them again. These could even be called torture devices. After Sean's mother died, his father always thought it was Sean's fault. He thought Sean killed his mother. For a long time, Sean lived under the abuse of his father. Sean seriously recalled. His relaxed look made me think he was not talking about himself. He said, his father once kicked him the farthest distance of 4 meters. That time, he broke 2 ribs. Sean left these things to constantly remind himself to tread carefully in every step, to avoid returning to that irreparable hell period. Tears were streaming down my face, without me realizing. I buried myself in Sean's arms, crying silently. I felt sorry for his past struggles as a young man and regretted the thoughtless words I had just said. I'm sorry, Sean. He finally embraced me back. One hand stroked the back of my head, his voice as warm as ever. I think I might have some psychological issues, but I love you, so I will try to be more normal for you. My crying abruptly stopped. I immediately lifted my head from his embrace, our eyes meeting. At the same time, a ding sounded in my mind. The system's voice was devoid of any emotion. Congratulations, host, mission accomplished. Please choose for yourself to leave or stay in the virtual world. 10 seconds to consider. 10. I gazed at Sean, earnestly asking him, Sean, do you need me, right? 7. Sean looked at me silently. Please, answer me quickly. 4. Yes, I need you. This was the first time Sean admitted his desires. Okay, I'll stay, always by your side. A double entendre. 1. I threw myself into Sean's arms again. Every day, every moment from now until I die will be a bet. I bet on you. No one loves you in this world, but I will come to love you. Rita Flynn had just witnessed a gang fight incident. Well, calling it a gang fight might not be accurate. After school, she saw Sean being followed by several people. Worried that something might happen to him, she had already dialed the emergency number on her phone and quietly followed behind. But it turned out her worries were unnecessary. Indeed, those boys were looking to pick a fight with Sean, but they didn't expect that all 5 of them couldn't beat Sean. Alone, Sean managed to snatch a steel pipe from one of them and turn the tables. In the end, the instigators were the ones who ended up beaten. Rita ran off to a nearby pharmacy halfway through. When she returned, Sean was staring straight at her. The others were probably helping each other as they ran away. Sean leaned the steel pipe against the ground and casually swayed it. "Haven't you seen enough just now?" He looked at her with a smirk. "Came back for more action?" He had noticed she was following him all along. Rita handed him the bag she was carrying. "I knew you could win, so I went to buy medicine without worry." She pointed to the boy's temple. "There's a blood stain here. Remember to put some medicine on it." "Bye, I'm heading home now." Sean glanced at the bag in his hand, then lifted his eyes to watch the girl's back again. "Do you like me?" he suddenly asked. Rita stopped in her tracks and turned around. "Yes, haven't I said that before?" She thought for a moment, looking apologetic. "Oh, I guess I really haven't said it." Then she spoke seriously. "I like you, Sean Seaborn. It's love at first sight." After saying that and seeing Sean still silent, she didn't expect him to immediately agree, so she said goodbye to him again and left. Rita remembered that the first time she said the same words to 27-year-old Sean, he was also silent like this. She didn't expect 17-year-old Sean to be the same. Waking up from a nap, she traveled back 10 years, and this is Rita's current situation. After finding Sean, she chose to work part-time at a bookstore near him. Since she didn't know how to go back, she decided to stay and accompany Sean. She remembered that he wasn't living well at 17. After being confessed to by Rita, Sean's first reaction was, he thought he was being played. After all, he was someone even his closest parents disliked. But she had been around him for so many days, yet he never noticed her intentions. This girl seemed to have been treating him kindly all along. Sean remained calm on the surface, but only he knew the slight wavering in his heart. That night, his luck was not good. He happened to encounter his father going crazy from drunkenness. As soon as he entered the house, he was caught red-handed. The drunken man, with bloodshot eyes, stared at Sean. The next moment, he slapped him. "Didn't I say you must be back by 9 o'clock? Are you ignoring me?" He finished speaking and slapped him again. Sean's father had many years of martial arts training. 10 years ago, Sean was no match for him. The sides of the boy's face instantly turned red. "It's only 8:30 now." He didn't touch his own wounds, just coldly pointed out the man's mistake. But the alcohol-fueled man couldn't listen. He only knew that his troublesome son was defying him again. He breathed heavily, the smell of alcohol filling the air. "Defying your old man?" The man kicked Sean in the chest. With full force, the boy was instantly thrown to the ground. Young Edward came out of his room and happened to see this scene. He watched quietly, feeling that his father's kick was not harsh enough. After all, last time, that bastard broke 2 ribs. The only thing that made the young Edward feel a little relieved was that his father did not let him off the hook. Instead, he grabbed the boy's collar, dragged him with brute force, and threw Sean out of the door. Sean coughed twice before slowly getting up from the ground. The men inside the house looked on indifferently. "You go outside and reflect for the night." Sean was thus locked out. On the early November night, he was only wearing a thin school uniform. His father did not allow anyone in the family to give him money, and most of the time, he had nothing on him. Tonight, it would probably be very difficult to get through. Sean chuckled coldly, showing an indifferent attitude. The bookstore is open 24 hours a day. Tonight happened to be Rita's night shift. The homeless Sean was found by her on her way to buy a late-night snack. She stared at the obvious footprint on the boy's chest. She could guess what he had just been through. Sean originally wanted to bypass her and leave directly. Unknowingly, he didn't want her to see him in a sorry state. But before he could make a move, the girl in front of him suddenly filled her eyes with tears. It seemed like they were about to fall at any moment. Sean inexplicably stopped in his tracks. "Why are you crying?" Rita came to her senses and looked away. She raised her head, widened her eyes, and forced the tears to not fall. With red eyes, she casually curved her lips. "I'm on the night shift tonight and feeling a bit scared. Can you stay with me at the bookstore?" She didn't say, "I'll find you a place to stay, or you can sleep at the bookstore for the night." Instead, she told the boy that she needed him. Sean was silent for 2 seconds before lifting his chin forward. "Lead the way." Rita walked ahead, holding the corner of Sean's sleeve from behind. "There are no street lights ahead. You can't see clearly. I'm holding you so you you won't fall. Sean lightly chuckled, not arguing. Sean, Rita sniffed. The boy casually responded, when the pear blossoms bloom next spring, I'll make you pear blossom cakes to try. She said, endure this winter, and the pear blossoms will bloom. Sean understood her meaning. A certain school director is Edward's aunt. She cursed him as a motherless bastard from the first time she saw him. Later, the news of him being a bastard spread rapidly throughout the entire school. It was clear who spread it. Look, Sean has wounds on his face again, probably beaten by his dad and stepmom. Yes, having a dad or not is the same. Who would like a bastard? He could endure such words. Rita could guess what he had been through, which was not surprising. He had rebelled before, and then was beaten half to death. He had also tried to escape, but the person had eyes and ears everywhere, and before he left the city, he was brought back. A week of solitary confinement. Sean did not respond to Rita's words. He knew this winter would be long and hard. Rita originally intended for Sean to rest on the sofa in the bookstore for one night, but he seemed to have come only to help her watch the store. Late at night, Rita couldn't hold on anymore and fell asleep on the counter. Sean leaned against the door, quietly watching her. A few minutes later, the girl's steady breathing could be heard. Only then did Sean walk over, pick her up, and gently place her on the sofa. On this cold night, the chilly wind swept through the deserted streets. This girl gave him a place to shelter from the wind, saving him from tonight's cold. But now he was nothing. Even being with her, he couldn't even afford to buy her a gift. But everything was different now. This time, the young man was no longer trapped in darkness all day long. In his 17th year, he was also once favored. The 27-year-old Sean, sick and paranoid, had developed an extreme personality through trials and tribulations. Because of Rita's early appearance, his life trajectory had quietly begun to deviate. On the last day of the college entrance examination, it was also Sean's 18th birthday. He finally came of age. That day, the headline read, Seaborn Group Chairman, a well-known entrepreneur in the city, has been abusing his eldest son for many years, using extremely cruel methods. Sean sent several memory cards containing evidence of abuse to the Public Security Bureau, court, and procuratorate. Mr. Seaborn was not all-knowing. He was still subject to the law. In the end, Sean finally severed his guardianship relationship with his father. Due to the scandal, his father's company's market value evaporated. The board of directors had doubts about his position as chairman. There were quite a few people proposing his removal. Mr. Seaborn was too busy dealing with the mess to even bother seeking Sean for an explanation. Edward, on the other hand, was different. That day, Rita excitedly took Sean out to celebrate at a restaurant. It was Sean who footed the bill. It was the money he had saved from odd jobs in the past few days. Although not much, he could finally do something for her. Edward's appearance put a damper on the celebration. At just 10 years old, Edward didn't understand much, but he knew that his father was in trouble because of Shane. So, he had the driver take him to find Sean. The first thing he said when he spoke was, "Why don't you just die? Such a despicable person deserved to die." Rita stood up as soon as he finished speaking, not giving Sean a chance to react. She walked directly up to the little devil. In the next instant, she unexpectedly kicked him without warning. Just behind him, the restaurant staff were changing the fish tank. Edward stumbled and fell into the tank with a splash. Half of him was soaking wet. Rita looked down at him from above. "Mind your own business. If you dare to be so arrogant again, next time I'll dunk your head in the pool." The young Edward was successfully scared into tears. He had never encountered resistance before. He was used to being overbearing. He dragged himself out dripping wet, ran out to find the driver, and escaped back home. Sean sat back comfortably in his chair, watching the scene with a meaningful look. "You've got quite a temper," he commented with a smile towards Rita. Rita felt a bit embarrassed. Her ladylike image was gone, but Sean didn't mind. Rita was genuinely happy for him, and she accidentally had a few too many beers. When they left the restaurant, it was almost 9 o'clock. Sean saw that she couldn't stand straight, so he decided to carry her on his back. "Sean," her voice slurred. "Yeah, you will get better in the future." The young man chuckled. "I'm serious," Rita shouted. "Okay, whatever you say." Sean didn't argue with a drunk. Rita softened her voice. "I will always be by your side." Sean stopped in his tracks, gently urging her to continue. "You promise?" Rita, feeling dizzy, followed his lead. "I promise, I will always be by your side." There was a smile in the young man's eyes. Okay. The streetlights cast long shadows of the two figures. The road ahead was unclear and rough, but she would always be by his side. This is the happiest thing in his life.